Hello, everybody. It's Miss Shapiro. Happy Friday. Today, we are going to take a look at a book that is now considered a classic. It's called The Outsiders. One of the reasons why I chose this book to, share with you is because my daughter actually had this as her summer reading for this summer, and she's not a huge reader. Like, she doesn't like to just go and pick up a book and hole off somewhere and, But this book was different for her. She really enjoyed it. In fact, she would read for long stretches of time, far beyond what she really needed to each day in order to get it done for her task. So I thought you might like it too. Excuse me. So here we go. Before we get started, though, this is a poem that is central to the book. So I'd like you guys to pause the video for just a moment, read it over to yourself. And clearly with this poem, the title is a big deal, right? Nothing gold can stay. Oof, kind of a sad tone, right? Let's take a look. And, oh, by the way, if you're into poetry but you don't know where to go to look for other poems to read or anything like that, this is a really cool thing. Poetry Foundation, what they do is they have a poem of the day that you can subscribe to. And they're not going to spam you with a bunch of junk. They're just going to send you a poem every day. And if you like it, great, you can read it. And if you don't, fine, delete it. All right? Now, today's reading, I am actually using a resource from the Jeffco Public Library. I love the Jeffco Public Library system. It's so amazing. And they have this system where if you have a library card number, you can check out books online and you can read them on any device, including your Chromebook, if you have your phone and you want to sign up on there and have the app, whatever. But the actual tool that we're going to be using is called Boundless. Okay, and it's totally free, and it's just an online checkout. So I've gone ahead and done that, and here we go. Now, this is interesting because I'd never read this before. This is a letter from the author, S.E. Hinton, and I'm just going to read a little bit to you. Dear reader, it is very difficult for me to write about myself, and especially The Outsiders, which was written at a horrendous time in my life, was published by a series of mind-boggling synchronicities, and has gone further than any author dared dream. But I'll give it a shot. I wrote The Outsiders when I was 16 years old. Actually, I began it when I was 15, as a short story about a boy who was beaten up on his way home from the movies. But I didn't just write The Outsiders, I lived it. Looking back, I realize how important it was to me to have another life at that time, to be someone else, to deal with problems I had to face and write my way to some sort of understanding and coping. This is all hindsight. At the time, I was mad about the social situation in my high school. I desperately wanted something to read that dealt realistically with teenage life. I knew I was going to be a writer. I loved to write. I began in grade school because I loved to read, and I liked the idea of making stories happen the way I wanted them to. By the time I was in high school, I had been practicing for years, so I was both elated and not surprised when I received my publishing contract on the day I graduated from high school. Oh my goodness, can you imagine? That is super cool. Anyway, if you guys check out this book, you can read the rest of the letter, but I'm going to move on. Okay, yeah, and it was made into a movie too. Really, really good movie. Also now considered a classic. S.E. Hinton's written some other books, which is really cool. I'm moving along through all these little pages, blah, 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 for Jimmy. All right, Chapter 1. When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. I was wishing I looked like Paul Newman. He looks tough and I don't, but I guess my own looks aren't so bad. I have light brown, almost red hair and greenish gray eyes. I wish they were more gray, because I hate most guys that have green eyes, but I have to be content with what I have. My hair is longer than a lot of boys wear theirs, squared off in the back and long at the front and sides, but I'm a greaser, and most of my neighborhood rarely bothers to get a haircut. Besides, I look better with long hair. I had a long walk home and no company, but I usually loan it anyway, for no reason except I like to watch movies undisturbed so I can get into them and live them with the actors. When I see a movie with someone, it's kind of uncomfortable, like having someone read your book over your shoulder. I'm different that way. I mean, my second oldest brother, Soda, who is 16 going on 17, never cracks a book at all. And my oldest brother, Daryl, who we call Derry, works too long and hard to be interested in a story or drawing a picture. So I'm not like them. And nobody in our gang digs movies and books the way I do. For a while there, I thought I was the only person in the world that did. So I loaned it. Soda tries to understand at least, which is more than Derry does. But then, Soda is different from anybody. He understands everything almost. Like, he's never hollering at me all the time the way Derry is, or treating me as if I was 6 instead of 14. I love Soda more than I've ever loved anyone, even Mom and Dad. He's always happy-go-lucky and grinning, while Derry's hard and firm and rarely grins at all. But then, Derry's gone through a lot in his 20 years, grown up too fast. Soda Pop'll never grow up at all. I don't know which way is the best. I'll find out one of these days. Anyway, I went on walking home thinking about the movie and then suddenly wishing I had some company. Greasers can't walk alone too much or they'll get jumped, or someone will come by and scream, "Greaser!" at them, which doesn't make you feel too hot, if you know what I mean. We get jumped by the Socias. I'm not sure how to spell it, but it's the abbreviation for the socials, the jet set, the West Side rich kids. It's like the term greaser, which is used to class all us boys on the East Side. We're poorer than the Socias in the middle class. I reckon we're wilder, too. Not like the Socias, who jump greasers and wreck houses and throw beer blasts for kicks and get editorials in the paper for being a public disgrace one day and an asset to society the next. Greasers are almost like hoods. We steal things and drive old souped-up cars and hold up gas stations and have a gang fight once in a while. I don't mean I do things like that. Derry would kill me if I got into trouble with the police. Since Mom and Dad were killed in an auto wreck, the 3 of us get to stay together only as long as we behave. So Soda and I stay out of trouble as much as we can, and we're careful not to get caught when we can't. I only mean that most greasers do things like that, just like we wear our hair long and dress in blue jeans and t-shirts, or leave our shirt tails out and wear leather jackets and tennis shoes or boots. I'm not saying that either Socias or greasers are better. That's just the way things are. I could have waited to go to the movies until Derry or Soda Pop got off work. They would have gone with me, or driven me there, or walked along, although Soda just can't sit still long enough to enjoy a movie, and they bore Derry to death. Derry thinks his life is enough without inspecting other people's. Or I could have gotten one of the gang to come along, one of the 4 boys Derry and Soda and I have grown up with and consider family. We're almost as close as brothers. When you grow up in a tight-knit neighborhood like ours, you get to know each other real well. If I had thought about it, I could have called Derry, and he would have come by on his way home and picked me up, or Two-Bit Matthews, one of our gang, would have come to get me in his car if I had asked him. But sometimes I just don't use my head. It drives my brother Derry nuts when I do stuff like that, 'cause I'm supposed to be smart. I make good grades and have a high IQ and everything, but I don't use my head. Besides, I like walking. I about decided I didn't like it so much, though, when I spotted that red Corvair trailing me. I was almost 2 blocks from home then, so I started walking a little faster. I had never been jumped, but I had seen Johnny after 4 Socias got a hold of him, and it wasn't pretty. Johnny was scared of his own shadow after that. Johnny was 16 then. I knew it wasn't any use, though, the fast walking, I mean, even before the Corvair pulled up beside me and 5 Socias got out. I got pretty scared. I'm kind of small for 14, even though I have a good build, and those guys were bigger than me. I automatically hitched my thumbs in my jeans, and slouched, wondering if I could get away if I made a break for it. I remembered Johnny, his face all cut up and bruised, and I remembered how he had cried when we found him half conscious in the corner lot. Johnny had it awful rough at home. It took a lot to make him cry. I was sweating something fierce, although I was cold. I could feel my palms getting clammy and the perspiration running down my back. I get like that when I'm real scared. I glanced around for a pop bottle or a stick or something. Steve Randall, Soda's best buddy, had once held off 4 guys with a busted pop bottle, but there was nothing. So I stood there like a bump on a log while they surrounded me. I don't use my head. They walked around, slowly, silently, smiling. "Hey, Grease," one of them said in an overly friendly voice. "We're going to do you a favor, Greaser. We're going to cut all that long, greasy hair off." He had on a Madras shirt. I can still see it. Blue Madras. One of them laughed, then cussed me out in a low voice. I couldn't think of anything to say. There just isn't a whole lot you can say while waiting to get mugged, so I kept my mouth shut. "Need a haircut, Greaser?" The medium-sized blonde pulled a knife out of his back pocket and flipped the blade open. I finally thought of something to say. "No." I was backing up away from that knife. Of course, I backed right into one of them. They had me down in a second. They had my arms and legs pinned down, and one of them was sitting on my chest with his knees on my elbows, and if you don't think that hurts, you're crazy. I could smell English leather shaving lotion and stale tobacco, and I wondered foolishly if I would suffocate before they did anything. I was scared so bad I was wishing I would. I fought to get loose and almost did for a second. Then they tightened up on me, and the one on my chest slugged me a couple of times. So I lay still, swearing at them between gasps. A blade was held against my throat. "How'd you like that haircut to begin just below the chin?" It occurred to me then that they could kill me. I went wild. I started screaming for soda, dairy, anyone. Someone put his hand over my mouth, and I bit it as hard as I could, tasting the blood running through my teeth. I heard a muttering curse and got slugged again, and they were stuffing a handkerchief in my mouth. One of them kept saying, "Shut him up, for Pete's sake, shut him up." Then there were these shouts and the pounding of feet, and the Socias jumped up and left me lying there gasping. I lay there and wondered what in the world was happening. People were jumping over me and running by me, and I was too dazed to figure it out. Then someone had me under the armpits and was hauling me to my feet. It was Derry. "Are you all right, Pony Boy?" He was shaking me, and I wished he'd stopped. I was dizzy enough anyway. I could tell it was Derry, though, partly because of the voice and partly because Derry's always rough with me without meaning to be. "I'm okay. Quit shaking me, Derry. I'm okay." He stopped instantly. "I'm sorry." He wasn't really. Derry isn't ever sorry for anything he does. It seems funny to me that he should look just exactly like my father and act exactly the opposite from him. My father was only 40 when he died, and he looked 25, and a lot of people thought Derry and Dad were brothers instead of father and son. But they only looked alike. My father was never rough with anyone without meaning to be. That's where I'm going to stop, guys. Now, The Outsiders is a tremendous book. I promise you, you won't be disappointed if you decide to look into this. In a future episode of First Chapter Fridays, I'm going to work on figuring out how to get you guys library access to tools like this through Boundless. And then also, Actively Learn should be back up and running within a week or so for the book portion, so teachers can start assigning you books that you ask for. I hope that you guys have a great weekend.